members from the creative industry, my colleagues from Namibia Revenue Agency, a very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you. First, really, I just wanted to express our heartfelt appreciation for your participation and for responding positively to our invitation. Without you, this event would not have been possible, and we believe big time in stakeholders' engagement. I was requested to come here and give some brief remarks, and in those brief remarks, I want briefly to touch on the NamRA journey. But before I unpack for you the NamRA journey, I just wanted to share with you some teaching from Stephen Covey when he argued and said, seek first to understand before you can be understood. And again, I'm reminded about the teaching of Don Miguel Luis when he shared with us the 4 agreements. And out of those 4 agreements, there is one where he argued and said, don't make assumptions. At times you have stakeholders, at times you have clients, and you think you know them. And you make assumptions. And you think you understand, but you did not seek to understand before you can be understood. It's for that reason that engagement like this is very, very critical. If one look at our definition of the creative sector and the 588 taxpayers who are cited there as parts of the creative sector, you will already know that our understanding of this sector up to the time that we were pulling this data from our system is limited. And therefore, sitting there and listening to Ms. Amagulu, already one knows that this industry is huge. This industry is big. And therefore, an event like this, I just have to thank my colleagues from Namibia Revenue Agency, Master Yaruke Kurondro, Kade, Tonateni, and the entire team, and my colleagues both from Domestic Tax and Custom who prepared and put together this presentation. And all of you, that an engagement like this is very critical for us to have a better understanding of this very critical industry, because we will all agree that, and listening to that definition that was given by one of the Namibian artists about, imagine a word without music, without songs, without dance. I was seated there and said, well, you can't imagine life without a creative industry. It's not possible, no matter what circumstances you are living. Briefly, let me take you back briefly to the NamRA journey. Now, we have all heard about the establishment of NamRA. Namibia Revenue Agency was launched on the 7th of April 2021 by His Excellency Dr. Hage G. Geingob, President of the Republic of Namibia. But before the launch and the establishment of Namibia Revenue Agency, before that, within the Ministry of Finance, we have 2 core departments that administer revenue laws. What are those 2 departments? You had Customs and Excise. Then you have Inland Revenue Department, which other people then call Receiver of Revenue. Now, what then happened in the early 80s, many developing countries and many countries of the world started moving away from this model of having this revenue management department within the Ministry of Finance, so that they can have what is called a semi-autonomous revenue agency or authority because it was felt that if this function is taken out from within the government structure, from the Ministry of Finance, if it's taken out from the public service rules, possibilities that it can be more efficient, it can improve service delivery, it will be able to deal and detect and deal with issues of tax evasion and illicit financial flows. And by 2013, many African countries have moved to that model. But 2013, I think there were only 3 countries in Africa that were still lagging behind. And we must thank the leadership of Namibia that in 2013, a decision was then made that Namibia cannot remain behind. We must also have a semi-autonomous revenue agency. So the decision was taken by Cabinet 2013. 2017, the Namibia Revenue Agency Act number 12 for 2017 was then passed. 2019, the Board of Directors were appointed. September 2020, the founding commissioner was appointed. Then, of course, 2021, like I have said before, on the 6th of April, to be specific, 6th of April 2021, the law was gazetted and the agency was then launched on the 7th of April 2020. And by that, we then felt that before you start with any institution, before we launch, there was a need for us first to have a vision. Because without a vision, we are told in the Bible that a nation will perish. And therefore, we needed to have a vision. And we set ourselves a very bold vision. Which vision is that we aspire to be a world-class revenue agency, serving with passion to positively impact the livelihoods of every Namibian. So that's our vision. Really to be a world-class revenue agency, serving with passion to positively impact the livelihood of every Namibian. Now, when we were briefing members of the different political parties, one of the politicians asked us a very provoking question and said, "What do you guys mean by world-class revenue agency?" So that was the challenge, and we wanted to explain and say, we want this organization, Namibia Revenue Agency, when we mean world-class, we are looking at 4 pillars. We're looking at getting the right people in the right position. The people that are working for this organization, they must be able to walk into the Inland Revenue Service of the US or in the HMRC of UK or in SALS and be able to do the same job. Right people in the right position, really investing in people to have the right competency. Then we're talking about the systems. The system, we have 2 key systems, integrated tax administration system and the ASCUDA system, that's a customs administration system. So we want these systems as well to be comparable with the best revenue administration system in the world. Then of course we look at the processes, that's now our practice, our way of doing business, our way of engaging, the policy, the procedure. Our policy and procedure must also be comparable to the best of the best in the world. Then of course we focus also on organizational culture. With organizational culture, we want to be professional. We want when we show up, you know that this is Namibia Revenue Agency. The way we show up, the way we dress, the way we do our work, the way we respect our clients, the way we enforce the law without fear or favor, the way we ensure that there is zero tolerance to corruption. And also that's why even we also needed to live and work in accordance with our values. And our value, on top of our value, is the value of integrity, no compromise, zero tolerance to corruption. We have a value of diversity where this institution must be institution for all the Namibians. Efficiency, fairness, and agility, those are our values. But I must stand here and say, with regard to efficiency, We are only 29 months, still work in progress, still have to re-engineer and make sure that the re-engineered processes are implemented so that we can achieve the efficiency that is required. And if I have to touch briefly on our core mandates, and I just want to touch to three. One of them, the first one, of course, collection of revenue on behalf of the state. We collect revenue on behalf of the state. We enhance legitimate trade facilitation. What do we mean by that? Any good to be imported in this country or to be exported from this country, it has to be cleared and declared with customs. And if there are duty or excise duty to be paid or levy, it has to be paid. Any goods. Then, of course, we also have a responsibility of protecting society. What do we mean by protecting society? Because our footprint, we are required to be at all the entry points in Namibia, at all the airports, at all the gazetted border posts, at all the ports. Now, as a result of that, we also have the responsibility, our colleagues from Customs, can you just stand so that the colleague can see you? Yeah, please stand, just stand so that people can see that nice jacket. Yeah, that is what you will find. Please stand them with their Customs uniform and so on. Yeah, so you will find them at every border post, and their responsibility is to make sure that illicit substances, including drugs, okay, you can have a seat now, they have seen how world-class you're looking. I give them a round of applause, please. Yeah. Now, there are things that we do in terms of protecting society that many people do not know. For example, you may have heard 2018, I think the sentencing was given, the conviction and sentence was given last year, whereby a consignment or a container carrying cocaine worth 200 million Namibian dollar was intercepted by men and women in uniform at our Walvis Bay port. You can just imagine what that cocaine would have done to my children, to your children, to some leaders, or to some members of the creative industry. You can just imagine what could that be done. And we also need to remember, in all the countries where you have conflict, where you have illicit and illegal guns and so on, when those guns comes in, they don't come through just the air, because even through the air, you have to go through the airport and the border. They come through the borders. And therefore, when we say seek first to understand before you can be understood, we would also want our stakeholder, our critical important stakeholder like yourself, to understand our mandate, to understand our role, so that, because we can't do this by ourselves. The role that you play, special colleagues, you have a very powerful voice, and you can communicate in different ways. And you can communicate in different ways, sometimes in a very creative way that we even cannot. And therefore, coming here is not only for us to say, oh, please be tax compliant, register, file, and pay. It's bigger than that. We want to create a report to indicate to you that we appreciate you, to indicate that this institution is for all Namibians, to indicate and also to share with you the role and the mandate of this institution, but also we also have an obligation to understand you, to understand the challenges that you have with tax administration, the challenges you have with customs administration, the challenges that you have, and how can we collaboratively hold hands and move in the same direction. I was requested to also briefly touch on the importance of being tax compliant or paying taxes. But before I get there, when I talk about the importance of paying taxes, I always tell people that a government or the state, it has only three sources of funding. One is through the revenue or tax revenue that is collected by Namibia Revenue Agency. The second one is through debt, where you go and borrow, or you get grants or maybe dividends, but dividends is very insignificant that we are getting from these Namibian companies. So now, the issue here is that even if you go and borrow, that money still need to be paid by a taxpayer. And also the issue of grants. There is now this concept which is called funding squeeze. Unlike in the past where developing country can get funding or grants and aid from other countries, fragmentation and geopolitical tensions, the war between Ukraine and Russia, the tension sometimes between US and China, those funding, those aid that used to be there is no more. And therefore, for a country to be able to fund its developmental agenda is through domestic resource mobilization. Now, some people say, what do I have to do with this? I tell you what, a creative industry, in as much as it's very critical and important to any country, if we do not have peace and stability, you will not be able to function. Because your trade, of your tools of trade, your musical equipment, your business, if there is no peace and stability, any criminal can come and take it, and you have nowhere to report. Imagine a country where when you call the police and you say they broke into my house or into my business, and the police, they cannot even pick up the call because the phone is cut off by telecom. And even if you manage to get there, they have got no transport. I'm just giving you this bigger picture. Imagine a situation, we're talking about the revenue that we also collect. That is what fund public hospital. I'm a stern believer in improving our health system, so much so that we do not even depend on private health system. I'll give you an example. When COVID hit, when COVID was at its peak, and government needed to get vaccine and oxygen, we were at the center of it because we were making sure that those trucks of oxygen do not stop at the borders. But also the good news was that because during that time you cannot get vaccine or oxygen by credit, you have to pay it. I was very happy to see that our government was able to buy those oxygen and vaccine to save the life of many of our people. And the success rate as well, if you look in the public sector, the public hospital, Katutura Hospital, we have seen that your chances of survival was more higher when you are in Katutura Hospital than sometime in private hospital. What does that mean? We want to all understand the importance of domestic revenue mobilization so much so that in the future, even if we are not having medical aid and so on, we should still be able to go into a public hospital and get proper treatment. We should still be, even if you are not working, your child, the fact that the parents are not working, I remember 1994 when I finished grade 12, and from my family there was no means for me to either go to university. I didn't even apply for any bursary despite that I did my matric on exemption, and I didn't want to give my parents stress. But during that time I was lucky, I got a job as an assistant taxi driver before the police eventually recruited me. But the good thing with an effective taxation system, a child of a domestic worker, a child of a kapana seller, irrespective of the fact that the family can afford or not, if they do very well in grade 12, they can still get NASFAF and still be able to go to university. And this is all as a result of domestic resource mobilization. Why am I talking about domestic revenue resource, resource mobilization to this stakeholder and the importance of it? What I have noted, I didn't do it, we have to do more study. Mr. Mahulu, this sector, and Namibia Revenue Agency, we need to work together. Working together to ensuring that we have the correct data in ensuring that everyone is registered. We need to ensure and be able to measure, and the economists that will be able to do that, for us to determine what is the contribution of, we do know, and I do know, that this sector contribute greatly to the economy of this country. When you have a lot of tourists coming here, people getting entertained, people buying craft and all these things, we do know that this sector contribute big time to this economy. But you can't manage what you cannot measure. And also the reason why we need to get all the data, all the records, and also be able to measure and have models to determine what is the contribution. The importance of that, when we do that, this sector will even be able to have a much stronger voice than you currently have. I remember when COVID hit, with our neighbor here in South Africa, they have a concept called BESP, Business Economic Stimuli Package. And they have one that was just dedicated to the creative sector. Yes, 300 million just dedicated to the creative sector. But as it was being given to the participant, those of participant of that sector, there was one requirement for you to be able to benefit. Your books must be in order. You must also be registered as a taxpayer. You must have contributed to the economy as well. And when you have that, you can be able to speak with a much bigger voice. The reason why, one of the sector that I see is, okay, I'm talking about only from what I know. One of the sector that it have its own data in place. What I picked up during our stakeholder engagement, we engage with many different sectors. It's the mining sector. The mining sector, they have all the data. How many numbers, how many employees, how much do they contribute to the VAT, how much do they contribute to income tax and so on. And when you do that, even when you speak and when you approach even government, they listen and so on. But you could even be much bigger, because what I like about this sector, this sector also contribute to unemployment, reduction of unemployment, entertaining, informing, dressing, stimulating our soul, making us feel like human. And they are not taking the resources out like those who are on a daily basis taking our resources and using not creative industry, but using creative accounting, so that they are forever making losses. And at the end of the day, you will find the company 20, 30 years operating and not even paying a tax, because they are forever, creative accounting allow them to be making losses and so on. And if we even corroborate, I was listening to a wonderful song. I thought maybe Stephen will be able one day to play it when we engage again, where one of the artists in Botswana is singing about the importance of being tax compliant and so on, and really trying to challenge those and make them feel guilty, those who are not contributing, because it's not fair. So in conclusion, we came here not only for us to encourage you to register, to file, to ensure that you have your books in order, or for example, to consider getting someone in the accounting field and say, just focus on artists so that you can become an expert on us. Like in South Africa, you will find an accountant, because you do not want someone, today they deal with this and tomorrow they deal with this sector. You want someone to say, you as an accountant, just focus on our industry. understand our problem, and deal with our compliance issue, deal with our accounting issue, help us that our books are sorted out. Because truth be told, when your books are sorted out, you are tax compliant, you contribute the small that you are contributing to the overall tax revenue. Even when you walk, you feel proud, you know that the reason why this country there is peace, there is hospital, there is medication in the hospital. A child of a domestic worker or an unemployed mother is able to go to university. Is part of my contribution. Do you understand? You even feel much better. But you would need someone to ensure that those, the books, the compliance and the record and having good standing certificate and also contribution is in order, so that one day you are able to determine how much does your sector contribute. So on that note, once again, I want to thank you and to inform you that Namibia Revenue Agency is your institution. When your house is not in order or you have some debt and so on, or maybe you were registered but you have not been filed, and now you are getting a record that you are owing so much thousand and so on. Sometimes it could just be even penalties. What you need to do is to come to the office, file your return, make sure that you register on ITAS, make sure that when you file those return, maybe it's just interest and penalty, you may even end up not even owing anything after filing on the return. Understand that we are here to enforce tax law, but this is your institution. We want to do this with a human heart because we want our work to impact positively the livelihood of every Namibian, including you. Let's continue engaging as Namibian. Let's continue speaking up, especially those who are only taking the resources and not contributing. Let's hold hand and move into the same direction. And we are also saying if Namibia Revenue Agency win, Namibia will win. Because there is no way the economy will grow, a country will achieve prosperity without domestic resources mobilization. But this task is not only for NamRA, it should be a task of all Namibians, holding hands, moving into the same direction, helping to create a world-class revenue agency that must serve with passion to positively impact the livelihood of every Namibian. And I thank you.